right, good evening, internet world. Checking in for my, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, fifth consecutive vlog post. And I appreciate anyone who has checked out my previous videos, and especially anyone tuning in to this video. So tonight I'm going to talk about a book that just arrived. It's probably backwards because of the front-facing camera, but it's titled High Intensity Training, the Mike Mentzer Way. So this just arrived. I'm only a chapter in. This is an individual that I became aware of listening to Dorian Yates on the Joe Rogan podcast. I caught a clip of Dorian on YouTube. It just showed up on my feed, and he was talking about his bodybuilding career. So Dorian Yates is a world champion bodybuilder from the UK, and he was a multiple time Mr. Universe winner, so he won the top title in his field many times over. And he was on the Joe Rogan podcast maybe a year ago, and he was talking about a couple of his influences, or people that I had never heard of up to this point. A man by the name of Arthur Jones, who is the father of the exercise equipment that you see in most modern gyms, the cable and pulley systems where you can do the pull downs or the rows, the bicep machines, different things like that, were the brainchild of this individual named Arthur Jones. And a practitioner who put into practice some of his philosophy was a bodybuilder by the name of Mike Mentzer. So this is someone that Dorian Yates trained under, and this was mentioned in the Joe Rogan podcast. So I listened up until the point that I realized, man, I got to listen to the man himself. I got to find some info on this Mike Mentzer guy. And it turns out there's a few hours worth of interviews on YouTube that I started listening to, and I ordered his book that just came yesterday, and I cracked it open for the first time today. Backing up a little bit, the reason I mention all of this is close to a month ago now, maybe this is the end of the third or fourth week, on Memorial Day, I started getting back into the gym, 24-hour fitness, among most other gyms, closed down over the last year. And then even when they opened back up, there was restrictions on, hey, people can only be on every other treadmill, or you had to make appointments. And when they lifted those, there was very strict mask policies, which means the employees turned into little mask Nazis that would harass you if your mask was around your nose or your chin, if you took a drink of water and forgot to pull it back up. Very obnoxious, and I'm sure I will do a video on masks, or mask Nazism, or anti-masking at some point, but that is for a later date. At this point, I just wanted to mention that I started getting back into a little bit of weightlifting. It was something I've done for short periods of time over the last handful of years, and I will always kind of pick it up, maybe see some progress or feel good, and then it'll fizzle away and I'll move on to something else and never realize any meaningful progress, or turn it from just something I'm dabbling in, experimenting in, into an actual meaningful habit that sticks with me through the long haul. And I have to say, I'm pretty excited to come across this individual. He is a philosopher, he's a scientist, he's a practitioner, and in many circles it appears that he's one of the greats as far as systematizing, if that's even a word, the process of building muscle. And so I'm excited to check this out. I'm excited to try and put it into practice to some degree. And what I'm more excited about is the philosophy that he puts behind the muscle building activity. It's an activity that seems important, but I hadn't put any philosophy behind it, and he seems to have done so in a very meaningful way. And one of his basic principles, or big kind of paradigm shifting principles from previous generations, or what was kind of the established understanding of bodybuilding, was more is more, in the realm of more time training, more time exercising or lifting weights would amount to better results. And I'm excited to learn and validate it for myself. But he proposes that in this case, more is actually not more. Less is more, and high intensity, brief workouts infrequently, attempting to gain strength each workout, is actually what one should aim for. And so just I bring all of that up because he talks about most bodybuilders, and I'm just deep into a world that I have no credibility in and know hardly anything about. So I'm sure if there was any even halfway decent bodybuilder or amateur or professional who were to ever hear these words, they'd be like, yeah, what do you know about the subject? So with that being said, he is a big critique he makes of that community from which he came from, was the amount of time people spend in the gym is many times counterproductive. And he talks about how much more productive human beings, or how much more they could refine their mind or their finances or other aspects of their life if they cut back on the training time, and they could actually see better results by switching up their training methodology. So it would be a win-win. You see better, faster gains over a longer period of time, and also have more time to spend in these other areas of life. So it's very interesting to hear this individual in these YouTube interviews that he recorded these hour-long telephone interviews many years ago. And it's fascinating to hear them because it very quickly and frequently dives off of the subject of bodybuilding and goes into philosophy, politics, knowledge, things along those lines that you wouldn't necessarily associate with a guy who's fascinated with building muscle and the science of building muscle. So it just indicates to me that people who take a meaningful approach to whatever their profession is, a lot of times come to similar conclusions just about principles. A lot of what he was saying about freedom and individual, what did he called it, intellectual dependency was a word that he threw around a lot in these interviews, basically saying, not only the bodybuilding community but society at large, he was saying, is in an intellectual dark age, and that they're intellectually dependent on whether it's bodybuilding magazines or the government or some other entity to tell them what to do and what to think, and that people are not programming themselves to think for themselves and to understand what knowledge is and seek to gain knowledge in different facets of their life. So it's super interesting. Apparently he was a big fan of Ayn Rand, which has come up in a lot of different circles and was even recommended to me in one of the first videos that I put out on ideas of libertarianism. So I guess I will have to determine what the best book of hers to start with is and give it a read. But all that being said, I'm also maybe a little choppier than normal because I got some feedback on a recent video that I used a lot of ums in previous videos, and so I'm trying to cut back on that a little bit, which is a task that I'm having to be pretty conscious of. So normally when I'm formulating ideas, I'm able to use that as a filler and just naturally slide in to the next topic. And I'm using probably more brain power right now, focusing on not saying or So we'll see how long I keep that up, or focus on it, or care about it. But for the time being, hey, maybe I'll practice it for a few more vlogs and then see what happens. So yeah, I guess we can leave it at that for this evening. Again, just super excited about this little topic. Well, I will read a quote from the opening of the book, which I thought was super fascinating. So, in the 1930s, Pulitzer Prize-winning philosopher and historian Will Durant made the comment that, quote, "Of the many ideals which in youth gave life a meaning and radiance, missing from the chilly perspectives of middle age, one at least has remained with me as bright and satisfying as ever before: the shameless worship of heroes. In an age that would level everything and reverence nothing, I take my stand with Victorian Carlyle and light my candles like Mirandola before Plato's image at the shrines of great men. For why should we stand reverent before waterfalls and mountaintops, or a summer moon on a quiet sea, and not before the highest miracle of all, a man who is both great and good?" So that really resonated with me. That's one of the opening portions of just the preface, because I feel like I've always had a fascination with people who have achieved remarkable things. One of the first videos I made was about the autobiography of Benjamin Franklin, and again, I need to go back and reread it, but I remember at the time being fascinated with what this individual had achieved, and since then I've been fascinated with stories of guys like Will Rogers, who was a comedian in the early 20th century, guys like John Rockefeller, who, basically created, or at least rode the lead of the tidal wave that revolutionized, the world's energy supply and refining oil. So I've been fascinated with people who've done remarkable things. I've always tried to just consume as much as I can in the way of information or best practices, or just learning about the story of how they got to where they got and how they achieved what they achieved. And so that's a bit of a validation in the realm of it not feeling like a waste of time, or like a negative activity to learn about people that I admire, right? And I also did another video about my Mount Rushmore of people, my Mount Rushmore of living people, right? And these are all people who, again, it's refreshing to see it in a new way with this Mike Mentzer individual. But these are all people I respect because of the way that they think. It appears to me that they've found true principles within their given domain. I talked about Dave Ramsey, right? He talks about very simple principles of handling money, and something that everyone should understand and put into practice because it will make the rest of your life easier. Learning how to manage resources, which could be summed up in a very simple way, which is live below your means. Be productive to earn an income of resources at a certain level and live below that so that you have a deficit that you can save and put away and invest in other things so that you're able to build a nest egg and not rely on anyone else in your old age, right? So that's a pretty simple concept, but there's so much hype in the world around investments or personal finance or financial vehicles that it's easy to get lost in the noise. And I'm no expert, I'm no millionaire, but I don't feel handicapped in this arena, and I think it's in large part by having listened to a guy like Dave Ramsey. And so and in the same way on that Mount Rushmore was a guy like Jocko Willink, and his main professional focus is around leadership. And again, he was someone who was, in a sense, a scientist of leadership, being the head of training in his Navy SEAL department. And it seems to me that he found certain truths, certain basic core principles about leadership and being in a team and being effective in your role within a hierarchy. And I think that's what is attractive and draws a lot of people in to his universe. So all that being said, I appreciate anyone who has tuned into this, and look forward to many more times of sharing ideas, and again, hopefully leading to gaining information and opening up conversations and connecting with new people. So again, feeling extra grateful today for the abundance out there in the world, and hope you all are feeling the same. So have a great evening, and I'll catch you guys tomorrow.